What is it?
And we're live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. This meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. Elected members of the committee unable to join the meeting in person are able to join remotely. However, they do not form quorum.
That's great. Yeah, close that. Yeah, close that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do I have to start again?
No.
So, okay. So the last word I admitted was quorum. Okay. Elected members not present will not be able to vote, and their attendance will not be officially recorded, although their virtual attendance will be noted in the minutes. Anyone attending remotely must turn on their camera when addressing the members of the committee. With regards to meeting etiquette, please may I ask that you indicate you wish to speak by raising your physical hand if you're present, or your virtual hands if you are remote. Please note that the chat function on Zoom will not be used in this meeting, and question or comment on the agenda pack should be raised via the chair. Colleagues, as usual, we have a busy agenda tonight, very busy indeed. I am keen to move on at pace and expect this meeting to conclude at 9 o'clock as is scheduled. Therefore, for the substantive item, I hope to do that in 90 minutes. So I would ask both scrutiny members to be very succinct in your questioning, and likewise the executive and the witnesses to do likewise in your responses. Having said that, this meeting of the London Borough of Newham Review and Scrutiny Committee is now called to order. Welcome again. I will start by introducing myself and Councillor Anthony McColman, Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and on my left.
Manisha, Councillor for East and South Ward and Chair of Education and Young People Services Committee.
Councillor Susan Masters, Chair of Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee.
Councillor Mahmood Mirza, Bowling Ward.
Helen Kemp, Co-operative Member representing the Church of England.
Councillor Richard Kent Kendall.
Councillor for Hudson Ward and Ward. Councillor Terry for Stratford Ward and Chair of the Crime, Environment and Transport. Good evening, Paul Leslie, representing the voluntary sector.
And can I have Zophie to introduce himself and it's
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Zulfikari, cover leave for fire resources.
Yeah, I'm Conrad Hall, the Corporate Director of Resources, also Chair, if I may. Abby Bago, the Chief Executive, is unwell and sends her apologies and is unable to attend, and so I'll also be representing her at this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Andrew Ward, Deputy Director of Finance.
James Parsis, Assistant Chief Exec, Chief Transformation Officer.
Olivia Shaw, Assistant Director Resident Experience.
Nahila Alawi, Assistant Director Corporate Transformation.
Councillor Neil Wilson, Cabinet Member for Health and Adult Social Care.
And we have supporting us Paul Kurt,
Director of Corporate and Business Support Statutory Officer.
And Michael Cast.
And Artemis, who is busy with the technology. And in an observing capacity, we have Councillor Blossom Young, a newly elected councillor, less than 1 month old, as a member, and she's here to observe. Thank you. Right. So I outlined the order of business, which would be I'll be outlining in a few minutes. Apologies for absence. Councillor Josh Coffey has sent his apology, and the Chief Executive, Conrad, has already noted. Is there any other apologies? No. The clerk will note that there's no other apologies. Declaration of interest? Any declaration of interest?
No.
No, the clerk will note that there's no declaration of interest. Minutes. Can the committee note that the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of July, which is the quarterly minutes, will be made available for our meeting on the 3rd of September? Is that noted?
Chair, can we also note that the minutes, we still need to receive the minutes of the 22nd of April as well?
Minutes of
22nd of April.
what about that minutes?
We haven't received them.
Okay, can I ask that we see those minutes? Now, the order of business. I move that the order of business to be considered on the agenda be amended to take item 7 to 11 first. After that, item 5, and consider item 6, budget performance. And after the forward plan of key decisions, is that noted? Is that agreed? Agreed. So that takes us to Scrutiny Chair's report. I should by right give my report first, but I would hand over to Chairs and then I will mop up with the lot of time. Okay. Councillor Masters, seems like you got my eyes first. Want to give your report?
My report
2 minutes.
that Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny set their work programme on the 16th of July. Since then, we had our first meeting on the 30th, which was attended by members of the Integrated Care Board to discuss their report on how they're intending to meet young future needs. So we had a very interesting session on that. And we also did a session on youth leisure strategy, because that's quite a hot issue at the moment. Our next meeting will be October 29th, and report on the challenges and risks meeting the health and care system. Needs.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. The Education Scrutiny Commission met last week, and you will see our programme written in the agenda to be ratified or agreed collectively with the cabinet members, officers, and the elected members. We decided our work programme, and it was a very positive discussion. Half of our children in the borough, we also have that better outcomes.
Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chair. My commission met recently and we agreed our work plan for the end of the year. 2 main focuses. Number 1, we'll focus on the performance of the police and the council in terms of crime and ASB. We're also looking at our youth strategy and our new and integrated community enforcement model. That'll be the first meeting. And in November, we'll be looking at our implementation impact of our park strategy, our waste and recycling strategy, and actually also, Chair, just to say, last year we did a very good task and finish group on the local plan. And as residents may or may not know, the local plan has started its consultation. So please encourage all community groups, especially the faith groups, to join that consultation and put their views on our future impact.
Thank you. Since our last meeting, I've met with the mayor twice. I've already circulated the first set of notes on that meeting. I met with the mayor yesterday and I will be preparing the notes of that meeting and will be circulating it to members of the Overdue and Scrutiny Committee by the end of this week. I have been in communication with the chief exec on various matters, and meetings are in the process of being arranged for me to further discussion on some of the items that I've raised with the chief exec in written communication. Work program. The housing and regeneration work program is now completed and will be ratified this evening, and it's on the papers that is stated here this evening. In the interest of time, I would not say anymore. Also, the Black Boys Commission, which I am chairing, the work program is being looked at, because I'm hoping to complete this work by December. There's a lot to be done. Today, I went to Fight for Peace and spoke to some of the boys there. It was very, Councillor Master, I thank you, Councillor Master, for attending. Very informative. It left me numb. I'm very impressed with the facilities there, and obviously it's the facility that is needed in the area or the borough as a whole. Very impressed. The boys are very articulate, and I would recommend, and just for the minutes, that the cabinet member for crime and community safety attend along with the mayor. It will be very useful for them to get some insight into the work that is going on there and the experience of the boys. That's all I would say on this. Thank you. Any question? Okay, we now move into the item 9, which would be the scrutiny work program. This item is to approve the annual scrutiny work program for the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the Scrutiny Commissions for this municipal year, 2024-25. Before we approve the work program, in light of member discussion around new and budget, and in line with Council Procedure Rule 29.9 about setting up working parties, as chair, I would like to propose the establishment of a working party, which, for the benefit of colleagues, this would be a budget commission to scrutinize the in-year budget performance. My suggestion is so that the working party lays groundwork for the Budget Scrutiny Commission. The aim is for the working party to dovetail with this Budget Scrutiny Commission. This will assist with the work program of Budget Scrutiny Commission. This Budget in-year commission will be more agile than the Budget Commission, Scrutiny Commission. There is no requirement for proportionality. There's no requirement for proportionality as confirmed by the monitoring officer. It is proposed that Councillor Hudson chair this commission and vice chair Councillor Rita Charter. Draft terms of reference of the working party and the budget commission has been circulated. Those papers have been circulated. Is there any contribution, any amendments, questions on the commission? Okay. Therefore, I move that the Overview and Scrutiny establish the budget scrutiny in-year working party. And excuse me for the name, but we're going to get the name. But it's an in-year commission to review in-year budget performance. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
I further move that Councillor Hudson chair the said in-year budget commission and Councillor Rita Charter vice chair. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. I also move that the Scrutiny Annual Work Program 2024-25 be agreed. Is that agreed? Okay. Thank you.
Can I, make an amendment,
Okay,
addition?
yeah, you may.
I would like to, appoint head teachers as co-opted.
I come to appointments.
Right, okay, sorry.
Thank you. The next item is appointments. This item is to appoint and confirm members of Scrutiny Commission, Scrutiny Working, the in-years budget scrutiny, and any external bodies appointment. It is proposed but the membership of this has been circulated to chairs and the members of this commission. Are the chairs contented with the members of their various commissions as stable? Councillor Masters, I turn to you with regards to the inner London scrutiny.
I would like to nominate councillor Melanie Anovo to take up the currently empty delegate position, joining myself and councillor Keeling.
Is that noted?
Noted, Chair.
Okay, and that will be go to council for ratification. Thank you. And now go back to the substantive items on the agenda. The first is the freedom pass. Colleagues, in the interest of time, I am proposing no more than 20 minutes. So I'm going to guillotine this in 20 minutes time. Yes.
Sorry, I want to.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Talk about that.
Sorry, yes.
So for my commission, I would like to nominate head teachers as co-optees. Be done in the next meeting, which I don't know who the head teachers are. At the moment, I don't know the names.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so Councillor Shaw and I had that discussion, and Councillor Shaw has approached head teachers, especially felt that they would add value to our children commission, secondary teacher, head teachers, primary head teacher, and sixth form. I welcome the move. I think it's a useful initiative, and I hope that it brings enhance our commission work. Councillor Ford.
Chair, just a query regarding, we received a work plan bit going forward, is that right?
No, this is a membership.
Okay.
So is that noted by police? Okay. Now we move back to the freedom pass. So the next item on the agenda is freedom pass. This is an update on the disabled freedom pass following a local government and social care ombudsman case in 2023. Is there any officer who's here, Councillor Wilson, or is it?
Both of us.
Okay, so in total, we have 20 minutes for this item, 2 minutes presenting, and I know Councillor Masters would want to say something on this.
Exactly, sir.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Should I start? I've also got Rochelle entering, please, from adult social care. Didn't realise you're moving it up. I've just found that out. Okay, so if I just briefly introduce, you have a written report in front of you, and all I want to say, but obviously open to all questions from the committee, is to say that it's an update following that local government and social care ombudsman case last year, including the new number of passes issued under the new criteria in that report, the introduction of new policies and wider improvements for residents, as well as commissioning a review of the concessionary travel service. I want to stress from the outset that we did not mark our own homework in adults and social care. This was extended rightly, and that's why the author of the report and James are here from the resident experience, resident engagement point of view, and Olivia's the author of the report. I have Rochelle here, who is the main operations officer within adults and health, The policy responsibility for all concessionary travel, including disabled freedom passes, sits with the directorate, which I'm the cabinet lead. We've discharged the administration of the scheme to the corporate contact centre under a service level agreement. So I think at that point, basically, there's some statistics in there. There's reassessments that have been undertaken. There is a wider concessionary travel review, and we can ask some questions on that in section 3. And then the implications are basically, there's no significant implications from it, but all future improvements to service would take into account our consideration, quite rightly, with regard to the Equalities Act as appropriate, because by definition, this rightly applies to people with disabilities, with our ageing population, or those with other learning difficulties and other accessibility needs. So I think I'll leave it there, Chair.
Thank you.
James Parsis, as introduced previously. I've got Olivia with me, who leads the resident experience team, and just to follow up on Councillor Wilson's comments, we've provided an update not only on the implementation of the Ombudsman recommendations and actions, which you'll see on the paragraph 3.1, but we've also provided an update on those further steps that the local authority chose to make to go further back to the original date of the policy issue coming to light in 2013, and that's captured under paragraph 3.2. It's an ongoing process. That's one key thing I'd just like to highlight. So what you've got is a snapshot in time of the outcome of the engagement we've been having with service users and previous applicants. And I think my sort of overall summary is that it has been a really worthwhile exercise, not only kind of complying with the Ombudsman requirements, but doing that decade-long review of applications. And in fact, as a result of going back to 2013, a total of 234 applications that were previously rejected have now been approved. So clearly there was a substantial number of service users that were negatively affected by the failing that the Ombudsman identified, and it was right and proper that the council did go back to those service users to ask them to submit further evidence. We provided further data on some of the wider actions that have been delivered, and we've also provided some context around that wider review of concessionary travel, which I think Olivia will be very well placed to provide us a bit more data and detail on. Yeah, that's the sort of overarching position that we're in. If that's helpful, Chair, I'll
move to Councillor Masters, because if I may come in as and when other members.
No problem.
Councillor Masters.
So my question is, given that the legal advice we were given by the Ombudsman was just to review the 1 year of freedom passes, who took the decision that we were going to review for 10 years?
Happy to respond to that. So that was a decision made in consultation with the mayor and the portfolio holder at the time of producing the response to the Ombudsman. So the specific legal advice and the minimum requirement on the local authority was to comply with the local government Ombudsman recommendation, which was to go back 1 year. There was no legal advice preventing the council from going further than that. So it was a kind of an additional policy decision that the council made to go back to the 10-year period. And the rationale and logic for that decision was based on the acknowledgement that the gap in our policy and our eligibility assessment processes was not only limited to errors made in the last year. The Department for Transport guidance was updated in 2013, and it was at that point when the council failed to update its own eligibility and assessment processes going forward. The Ombudsman obviously made their own determination, but it was a policy decision that the council made.
You gave more than the member was asking. What the member asked, and can we avoid doing that if we're going to finish by 9 o'clock? The member asked who made the decision, and you went more than she asked. Are you want to come back?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a list of questions about this. And when the decision was taken to roll back over 10 years rather than sticking with the 1 year we'd been advised to, did we have independent legal advice that in not doing this, we were subjecting the council to a high level of risk of further challenges? I'm just trying to understand the context in which that decision was made, given the financial constraints to the council at the moment.
No, yeah, there wasn't any specific advice taken on additional risks that maybe whether the council was exposing itself to further risk by making that decision. There was no advice advising against that decision either, if that makes sense. There's no advice either way on that particular decision made. So yeah, that's the answer to it.
Thank you.
And I've got one more question, which is just, the report seems very vague in terms of how much this has cost us, particularly the gap between what it would have cost us just reviewing the 1 year that was the legal advice from the Ombudsman and reviewing 10 years worth of passes. And I'm just wondering how much more that's cost our authority, because while I think the decision's laudable, I'm assuming this is money that could have been spent elsewhere on other things and always sort of balancing out the two sides. But there seems to be a real lack of clarity. So I'm just interested in the figures, difference between the costs that 1 year would have involved and the costs that all 10 years would involve. So it's quite significant.
So in terms of how the financial costs of Freedom Pass are calculated, it is unfortunately quite labyrinthine. We are charged on an annual basis based on the number of journeys kind of associated with our passes. It is therefore very challenging to assess the impact of an individual Freedom Pass application that has been accepted in any accurate way. And that therefore does make it challenging to provide a single figure to a question like in the total cost of the decision.
So you're saying we will never know how much this has actually cost us?
It will be possible to see trend and data over time demonstrating whether the number of total journeys has increased as a result of these decisions, but it isn't possible to straightforwardly say each individual Freedom Pass that has been approved has cost X amount to the council, simply because of the way London councils charge us for the use per journey.
Thank you, Councillor Paul.
Thank you. The individual resident who complained, we compensated, is that correct?
That was recommended by the Ombudsman, yes.
And there are a number of people, very difficult to look at the report to work it out. Did we compensate the other people who we found out they should have had a part in the first place, on the same level as the original complaint? Yes or no?
The answer is no. The reason why, if you'd like me to offer that, is the compensation that was directed by the Ombudsman was specifically instructed in relation to that complainant's circumstances in their case. The council does have a compensation policy which we would follow if there was a request for that.
Just to follow up, in terms of fairness and transparency, we try to demonstrate as a local authority. By our mistake, we've inconvenienced a set of people who are quite vulnerable where money is a big consideration. We as a council have inconvenienced quite a large number of people. Do you not think the right thing to do will be to go back to them and develop a compensation scheme to put them back into the position they should have been if they've got criteria right in the first time?
In relation to what should be offered to previous applicants who have now been reassessed and have been shown to be eligible, what we've sought to do is to reach out to them in the first instance and address their Freedom Pass eligibility challenges. That's been the first challenge.
I get that.
Having engaged with residents, what we will continue to do is engage with them about any significant further issues that have arisen from that delay, etc. But that our first focus has been on eligibility.
I get that. I acknowledge that.
Yes.
Well done. But we have found out that we have inconvenienced a number of people by incorrectly applying the rule. That's correct, right? And those people could have suffered financial harm because of our decision. That's correct, right? Surely, do you not think the right thing to do is to offer those people some form of compensation? Because by our actions, we have potentially, and I use the word potentially advisedly, potentially financially disadvantaged some of our most vulnerable residents who have mobility issues, right? So, will you consider developing a compensation scheme for the people Newham Council has put in a financial negative position?
So I'll have to go first.
I think I've got to come in because that's a clear policy. The policy decision would be based upon the actual, James has already outlined, there's a convoluted funding of. We want to see this, and this is why the report has rightly commissioned a wider review of concession travel due back to reports to the team on the actual day of this meeting. There will be a much more significant project in the second half of this year to drive further improvements. The discussion with officers, and that's why I would like to bring in Rochelle, if you can hear me.
Can I?
Okay.
Sorry, I was mid-sentence.
I'm sorry, Neil, for the interruption, but I was going to ask you to address the question, and I don't know if that's why Councillor Paul interrupted. Because
you can't always answer a question just by yes, no. I was saying it has to be seen in the context of the wider review that is only just being completed today. We have made a decision based on the overall envelope of expenditure, rightly within a very convoluted funding mechanism, which we have relationship with Transport for London. And I just wanted to bring in Rochelle to actually emphasise that point, that at this moment, I cannot give you a yes, no, we're going to do.
And I think you've answered the question, because what you're saying to the member is that at this moment, you cannot give a yes or no answer. I think that you've answered the question he's asking, yes.
The member has given me a technical response to the officer. I'm asking as the cabinet portfolio member, in principle, do you agree we should be compensating those people? I'm not asking about a review, policy, guidance. I'm asking you as a political holder, we have disadvantaged a number of residents. I'm asking you as a political holder, do you think we should be compensating people? Yes or no?
I refer to the answer given.
Can I note, Chair, that was an insufficient answer to the question I raised. The issue is still on the table. There are a number of residents who have been disadvantaged by our actions, Chair. At the moment, that is an issue which is not take further because residents have been disadvantaged.
Okay, noted. And then Mayor?
I think it would be helpful if, through the chair, James is able to elaborate on a existing compensation scheme that the council has, which could be leveraged in the context of this without having to make a policy determination. I would also say this, from that principal primary case that led us to the revelation that there was a misinterpretation of two bits of law, one in relation to transport across England and Wales, and one as it relates to transport provision for those that require blue badge in the boundary that is the GLA of London. There was a misinterpretation of that, not only by Newham, but by the entirety of London councils. And I also make some comments in regard to some of the earlier line of questioning, where it was posited that given the financial circumstances that we now face versus a determination to offer those residents that would have been impacted outside of that one individual going back 10 years, that was done in a previous point in time. And had this case emerged today, this month, this week, or in the last couple of months, there would have been perhaps a different position expressed by the council with regards to how it was going to address that singular case, what implications it surfaced with regards to a small group of residents that have been impacted by a misunderstanding and misinterpretation of the law. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly, because this is really important. More broadly, we have a policy framework that talks about, and we've been often criticised, rightly, And I say that rightly as someone who has been committed to equalities, social and equality justice throughout the entirety of my life. But this council, other councils, other public bodies just pay lip service to the equalities duty. So part of the informing of the approach, once we clarified the situation with regards to this one case and what that meant and what that represented for London councils, given the misinterpretation of two different pieces of legislation, was in our endeavour to demonstrate that we are genuinely an authority that practices equality. That's in part the rationale.
Actually, the mayor added some clarity there, that there is a compensation scheme. And I think, I don't want to read the mayor's mind, but she's minded perhaps to direct those groups of people to a compensation scheme. And I think there's some goodwill to compensate. And I thank the mayor for that considered answer.
It's in place.
The corporate compensation scheme, which might be a way. That was a really great answer than what we've got before. So.
And it has, and it is there. It's not being considered. It's
Okay, we have in a two-way.
to that cohort.
Councillor Charter, and that's the last one in this. I'm going to give it to the and say that at a certain time.
Very quick points, and this is Joshua Garfield who raised this yesterday. Looking at the website page on the blue badges, the Newham's blue badge policy is a PDF downloadable. Is there anything you can do to make that more accessible, considering the discussions that have been had this evening? That's in my only point, Chair.
Yeah,
That's a straightforward yes.
thank you. Susan,
I'm still reeling at the idea that we don't know how much money is involved. I mean, given that I'm assuming there must be some kind of average figure for these freedom passes. I mean, just roughly what are we talking? We're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, million or two, maybe?
Commission bring the Director of Resources.
Chair, a Google search on gov.uk reveals that Newham has 9,000 blue badges. Didn't give a more precise figure than that. So if you divide through 11 travel by the 42 additional ones issued, you get 53,000 and odd pounds is the cost of, so a bit over 1,270 pounds per extra blue badge is the notional cost, with lots of assumptions about averaging out and so on.
So that's the initial ones, but you're not including in that the potential 938 residents who've been asked to.
No, that's just the 42 who have been
Right, so it could.
an additional blue badge in consequence of it.
Okay, noted.
thank you.
1,270 per person if you want a blue badge.
1 minute before the guillotine struck. So, right. And now I move that the briefing provided on the disabled freedom pass and the progress made to date on the improvement to the service be noted. Is that noted?
Yeah.
Noted, Chair. Okay. Thank you. And the next item is building a Newham performance. This item is to consider the Q1 building the Newham performance report. 2023, 24, 25. Who will be introducing this item?
So
2 minutes.
as per the normal quarterly reporting process, this is our current version, and it also includes some new features. I'm going to be inviting James and other officer colleagues as appropriate to just talk through some highlights. And in summary, it shows, as previously, areas of notable improvement and areas where there hasn't been improvement, and provides an explanation as to why. I'm going to just pause there, and I'm happy to answer questions as well.
Okay. Because time is fast advancing, I am proposing to give this about half an hour to 5 minutes. Okay, so I will delete it at that time. I recognize Councillor Charter.
And thank you for the report. I'm gonna just make a few comments and then go into some questions, if that's all right. And I'd like to actually start off with some positive comments. In the preamble to the report, can I congratulate you on some of the features that you pointed out, especially as an organisational discipline? I know this report's dovetailing with the peer review, and that's really, really to be welcomed. Also, the focus on cabinet accountability. I think it would be remiss to say that actually that has already started, in my experience, to filter through, and I would like to put on the record that in that respect, Councillor Anna Verdi has actually demonstrated some quite good efforts in that space. I think the commitment to review the corporate plan is absolutely essential. I may say it's long overdue, and I think we would all be collectively in a better position. So it would be helpful if we could get a timeline when a draft of that or how that could come back to this group. And I will also say that the quality in the presentation of the LGA peer review update on it is really good. You know, so lots to be correct. Don't worry, James, it doesn't go too downhill after here. A couple of technical points that may help. Now, some of the data that you've presented is the same data repeated 3 times in a different format. Bearing in mind that the transformation plan says that we have got people entering data, and that's an immense part-time, can we look at another way that helps Cabinet, that helps us, that helps yourselves in time efficiency? The data, it's all there, but we're just hearing the same story a couple of times. If we could get the graphs labelled a little bit clearer, because where the pages jump, it's then difficult to know which area you're speaking about. I had a question on amber tolerance and what that means. That's referred to in several graphs, but just a layman's reference to that. Those are my points. If I pause there for responses, and then I've got some specific points about some of the KPIs.
Thank you for the feedback. And just to say, we are continuing to look at how we can integrate and simplify the range of repetition and data entry into the system. And without going into too much detail, we're looking at exploiting systems like Power BI and others to reduce the kind of manual entry, not only for this report, but across the council, and we'll continue to do that. So thank you for highlighting opportunities for us to push that further. And thank you for the other elements of feedback. We'll continue to try and push ahead in those directions in ways that are helpful and constructive in light of feedback. In terms of amber tolerance, it's a kind of tolerable variation in performance near to target, which we've included for a number of indicators where small variations between 1 or 2% in performance might quickly change something radically from green to red over the course of a month. And instead of having a kind of misrepresentation of the scale of that change, we've created a small tolerance window, which is recognised practice around project and programme management, to recognise where we're in that in-between stage of either being very close to being on target or a very small variation has resulted in a change. So the amber just allows us to give you that greater granularity to highlight where there's been really significant drops in performance. That's where the reds are, and where there's just a minor variation in performance between target and off target. And that's what the amber, in layman's terms, hopefully that's clear, what the amber targets are there to kind of highlight.
Thank you, that's very clear. So just going on to some of the specific points on the community, and this again, this is a presentation point. On the community safety graph, you've got to, from memory, you're talking about domestic violence, youth offending. The arrows are going down, they're red. No, the arrows are going up, whichever way it is, it's the wrong way around. And I think that just goes back to that point about being consistent. Where, are you rating it? Are you using arrows? Whatever it is. From that, I can't really tell, and that's why I read the narrative, whether we're on target or whether we're okay on community safety. So now into some of the meat of the performance indicators. Satisfaction levels are still down, aren't they? We're not really shifted from where we are for a long time, and I think that's a corporate issue. But you've also said in several places in the plan, and One Newham is a perfect example, that you're planning to change the target, or there'll be a reconfiguration of the service in some way. How will you account for managing the difference without saying it's a completely new service. You see what I mean? You've got that service, you've made some traction, you've made some good progress. Don't see you go back to square one again. So how do you keep the value that you've had, but with different indicators?
I'll take first on responding to that. So on the satisfaction outcome target, it's a annually measured target. That's the first thing I just want to say. It's measured through the resident survey. We will continue to report on it because we don't want to lose focus on it, but we don't expect it to change until the new annual survey is concluded, if that makes sense. So we are expecting the new survey to be concluded within the next 6 months. We're working with colleagues in research to do that. But that kind of just gives you context as to how frequently we expect the reporting to change on that. It should only report a change every year. We are developing a range of other measures underneath that to give us more granularity on the day-by-day experience of residents, and we're using some digital tools like GovMetric and others that we are looking to add into the refresh of the corporate plan, which will help us know in between those annual measures whether or not we are actually making progress or not. So it's just a kind of point around that particular target. Sorry, do you want to?
So it's just the point about if you're going to change a set of questions, do we know how do we as a committee get assurance that we're measuring like with like?
So particularly on that satisfaction question, I would not be expecting us to change that question in the next year's survey. We want to keep that consistent for the very reasons that you've outlined. There are some technical issues we want to address in the methodology of the report and the way in which the survey itself is undertaken, which we do not want to do. We do not want to ever change the wording of that question because it is really important to stay true to the benchmark. And that's the same question that the LGA asked in their national survey. But the channel within which the survey is undertaken is important. We currently do it mostly through digital. The LGA run it over the phone and they do it face to face. And there's increasing evidence that the channel actually has a really significant impact on the outcome. So that's the sort of area within which we are looking at reviewing the methodology. But completely agree with you that we would never want to change the core wording of the outcome measure because it is really important to see the trend and to benchmark it.
And in terms of, and these are my final points, Chair. If we can look at P1, which is on page 24, I don't know if you've got the full pack or whether you've got the just the report. So page 24 of the individual report or page 30 of the pack.
You can see that.
That's the one about London living wage, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there, we're talking about. There we're talking about the London living wage, and then on the reference to on the one further down, we're talking about the Royal Docks and their tie-up into London living wage. Now, it seems to me that we've got a bit of an inconsistent policy. No, sorry, that wasn't my question. It was. On PI 6053, we have said that we are looking at the London living wage, but on the point about One Newham, we're saying that some of the challenges of One Newham's employment service is because we don't take, they have employees, but they have vacancies that do not pay the London living wage. Maybe it's a simple question. How do we balance that consistent position with being saying on the one hand, we're promoting London living wage, quite rightly, but then on the same hand, one of our providers isn't committed to the London living wage. One of our own departments isn't.
Okay.
Accepting those vacancies.
One Newham or our Newham?
Sorry,
On Newham work, yep.
I would have to discuss with Darren Mackin and Paul Kitson because that you're right to draw out the contradiction because the corporate position is the corporate position and there is no ability for any part of the organisation to opt out.
But you could see why they opt out.
I can understand because the challenge that I've given to the inclusive economy community wealth building team is that our position as it relates to employers signing up to the London living wage is frankly not good enough in the context of our scale of labour market and our corporate policy intention to tackle issues of systemic inequality and poverty. And part of that will lead to a more amplified, become a London living wage employer across our local economic landscape. We are working through our local industrial strategy, which will be the new iteration of our economic vision for the borough, and we're just waiting for details from the new government because they've announced that they want local authorities to be developing and driving growth plans.
But there's a question.
But there's a,
I'm back about the.
but on the challenge for that service area where it's tasked with getting people into employment and we don't have enough employers that are offering it's a real live one and we're working it through.
And
I don't think there's an easy answer.
No. And I think it's okay for it, but that's the contradiction in our presentation that concerns me. And my very final point, page 35, P 5031 talks about serious road injuries, but the data that they refer to is a baseline from 2005 to 2009. Is there nothing more recent? Is that really giving us an accurate representation?
I'm happy to quickly answer that one. So I'm not an expert on this particular indicator, but what I do know is any of the benchmarkable measures that we've like to refer to, particularly around things like street cleansing, road deaths, etc., ceased being collected nationally or regionally when the Audit Commission and a range of other aspects of performance infrastructure were brought to an end by the new government in 2010. I believe that particular measure is one of those measures that was once benchmarked and shared, but has no longer been measured in the same way since then. That's my theory.
What?
Yeah.
Could we not just be comparing to Luxury or other councils, other benchmarks?
If it's okay, I'd like to be able to provide you more detail once I've spoken to the relevant specialists in the area, but if that's okay, just as an initial response.
Thank you. Councillor Paul.
I'd like to echo Councillor Chadwick's comments about the improvement in terms of the framework. I remember the last time we were here, we went off into the realms of market research methodology and how we get it right. So it's important, as you said, so well done. Well, sorry, from my bit, I'm looking at the time check. I'm just going to.
Oh, from your time bit.
Right. So just some helpful remarks. I looked at it from the perspective of my scrutiny. On the crime statistics, could we put a link there to the Metropolitan Police data website? Okay, because looking at the statistics, it does make you quite narrow, but some of those statistics, I think it'd be helpful just with a link to the Met Police. And secondly, also, I think under each of these, it will be useful to add the corporate strategies for action plan for each of these. If I give you an example, I looked at domestic violence, it's going up. There's an argument you could say, you shouldn't say, oh, it's massively reported, nothing to click up. But it might be useful to put our actual action plan is, right? If we put our action plan linked to this, and we put the link to the Met Police figure, you can answer your own curiosity approaches. So that way, challenge in a constructive way by other people out there. So in summary, the report looks much better. But just one final thing. I was looking for the statistic. Last time we were here, I think it was 21% of residents felt the council was value for money. I don't seem to see that statistic in the pack. Where has it gone?
We made it disappear. How many kidding?
We don't do that.
No, I was only kidding. We made it disappear deliberately.
For Steve's behalf, we do not do that. Oh.
I'm only kidding. No, it's a joke.
I'll answer that. So I believe the last report that came to Cabinet and Scrutiny was the end of year report where we do the summation of all of the outcomes in the resident survey. That includes measures across the 120 questions in the survey. In the quarterly reports, we only pick out the strategic indicators. And that's the reason why you do not see all of the outcome measures repeated every quarter. Just to answer that question, I'm happy to answer the others if you'd like as well.
Tracking exercise, because we added to what we saw. But maybe it'd be helpful if we made it strategic and stuck it back in for the next quarter. You see what the residents actually think about the council. But thank you.
I mean, it will be presented as part of a annual report. And actually, to be fair, notwithstanding what James said and my flippant attempt at making a joke earlier, only because I've got these superpowers apparently, that you want to provide a holistic narrative to what may well be driving that sentiment in an annual report versus quarterly, because you're looking at everything in the round and you can provide more context, and that will be probably determined as being more robust and sound approach as part of a rigorous methodology.
Just say, Chair, obviously, if we put having a more holistic around, it becomes an outcome of a subjective view, what the holistic is. But if we put the data in there, the data is the data, right? And that's why it comes back to the comment I made about perhaps put the link in here to the Metropolitan Police data set, speak about the issues which relate to mine, and also bits of the corporate plan or director plan, which says this is how we're going to fix it, right? But I will say, having the data without any influence does provide a laser-like clarity. So, as I say, the next quarter, I'll be looking for the update to that figure just to see how residents feel about their council.
But you'll get that picture in any case, because the annual report, as much as it will present, you know, a end of year diagnostic and prognosis about what will come in the year ahead, it will provide an overview of the data, which you can see month by month. You can see the dip and you can see the peaks and you know, I would also suggest that, you know, putting pure uninterpreted data is also subject to manipulation and misinformation, disinformation.
Can I just say?
And numbers without context are also dangerous.
Let's go back to the debate we had at the last quarter between me and James about the veracity of data. I think sometimes having the data there, the overlays are useful, you know, and I think both valid, and you're right, data in the around, sometimes it's too raw. Again, just for transparency, it's just useful to have that there, and we can form our own opinion based on that. But look, there are subjective views on that, but data is what it does have that discussion. Accept the mayor.
Yeah, and just one final comment in response. Appreciate that there'll be different perspectives, but again, just really want to emphasize the approach around performance does follow and align to accepted robust methodology that local government uses, and also academic institutions and public bodies like the ONS.
This report is much better than the last quarter in terms of bits.
Well done.
I'm qualifying my bits and crying your bits about what you thought I think.
Do you want any comments from our
Yeah,
other team members?
Okay, so I'm going to go to Councillor and then Hudson.
Thank you. I wanted a couple of things I wanted to pick up on. Firstly, I know when equalities fell under my scrutiny, we had a discussion about some of the areas, and in particular, the kind of lower levels of satisfaction from Muslim communities, from residents in East Ham, and there was a very specific piece of work done around East Ham. I'm just wondering when you're going to have the results of that, firstly. And then my second question is looking at KPIs in my area. I'm concerned about the permanent admissions to residential care homes increasing, as I know that's an area where in the past we've done very well. And I know as well, policy wise, done a lot of work around sort of ensuring people could stay in their homes as long as possible. So I'm just wondering if there's anything specific driving that. That might be one for Councillor Wilson.
Yep.
And then also the increase in numbers of people sleeping rough on a single night, which I know are also well below where they were. But just again, whether there are central policy reasons driving that might be addressed by our new government.
Can I briefly come in then? The benchmark that you highlighted, Susan, is the first one in terms of 1007 of permanent admissions to resident and nursing care home. Comments rightly address that we've had 109 permanent admissions to nursing and residential care. These are people in the 65 plus cohort. So the
Still seems quite young.
we're still aging well, yes, but it's another issue around those with learning difficulties and other difficulties with their supported accommodation. But the priority remains home first for all, and we've rightly said this, and you've rightly interrogated the scrutiny, that the person supported at home being explored and a permanent placement being a last resort. There's 48 people in temporary placements, including 9 of which have been out for a year or more. ASC managers, and it is tying up with a report, as you rightly know, for an external evaluation of our current practice with the Directors of Adult Social Care review report, which you will see on the site of, and it's coming back to you, the scrutiny report that you asked for. It is managers are regularly reviewing the list, and we're on an improvement journey on co-chair with an independent chair on practice improvement board. It is actually its first meeting tomorrow. So it is a combination of how we are managing the regular review of the list coming into residential and nursing care to ensure accuracy of the indicator. And the accuracy is one issue. It is most important, though, from the residents' point of view, that we make certain that we try to do as much as we can to support people aged 65 years or older. It's just 4 people above target, but 4 people is higher than we wanted to be. That's what's on the rank indicator. On the rough sleeping one, there is clearly a national issue regarding rough sleeping. I think that, and I was on the count the other night, you can see the evidence of how the hostile environment policy of the previous government in terms of rough sleeping and people being discharged, quite frankly, at 7 days notice from hotel provision, not putting there repeatedly for the benefit of those watching, but by Home Office, not by Newham Council at all, that people do end up sleeping, and we've had 5 or 6 interventions sometimes with people. Remember that the 23 people we reported, that it was 24, I think, that was the March count, and it just went up by 1 or 2. That's in the 2nd largest borough in London. That is not to be complacent, but we're working with, it was only 5 at the same point last year, and that is mainly, I think, due to the outside influences that have been outside of our control. It's away from temporary accommodation. It's within the context of a sleeping pathway that cannot be necessarily captured by just 23 people. But during the time we've had the rough sleeping pathway, we've ensured over 1,500 people have had more permanent accommodation needs met. That is a tribute to the hard work of our Change Grow Live partners. Sometimes the people we see underneath the flyover at certain parts of the borough called Canning Town, they've had 6 interventions and they're still coming back. It was an uphill struggle, but that's the one that I think we do need to keep concentrating on, and I'm grateful that it's coming back to your scrutiny.
Can I pick up the final question? That was raised by Councillor.
Move on, yeah.
Just on that, the action plan, the main actions and recommendations from our conversation at that very helpful conversation at the Policies Commission. That's been passed into the policy and research team to input into their ongoing qualitative research programme to do some of that further research that we talked about, to better understand specific experiences of resident communities, disabled communities that participated in the survey and have also indicated they'd be willing to be contacted for further more qualitative conversations. Also engaged with colleagues within adult social care and other key departments that are leading on service strategies to ensure that they are building in to their service improvement plans and transformation strategies for the coming year, those key insights that came out of that conversation. In terms of a timetable, I'd like to be able to come back to you separately just to suggest how we might summarise the outcome of that work and report that back.
Do you know when it might be completed? Because I know colleagues took part in the East Ham part of the research, so we're just wondering when we see the outputs from that.
Yeah, I think probably in the next quarter, we should be able to provide an update and happily complete that separately if needed.
Councillor Atkinson?
Yes, thank you very much. Private sector rented property licence. I think it's P16011. The total population of private rented houses is 40,000, and yet current performance is only 20,000 properties are licensed, and monthly snapshot, no target. So are we saying that only 50% of properties are licensed?
Just quickly finding the indicator. 60, is this PI 6011? Councillor?
6011.
I'd have to refer to the relevant service lead for specific information, but the key difference between previous years' registrations and performance, I imagine, is down to the renewal of the scheme and the ongoing significant changes that are occurring in the private sector market in terms of numbers of private sector, households that are actually remaining in the borough. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, right, okay. I think a really useful table would be a bit of a changeover. What are the number of properties that are licensed? Combination of, if it's rolling, I expect there to be a number of old ones and the new ones. Because what I suspect you would like to know is how many people are actually renewing their licenses. How many people think it's a bit of a waste of time? How do you chair? I ain't going to bother to participate in this. Does anyone know?
So what I'm going to suggest, just building on what James Partis has said, let's go back to the service area and the cabinet lead. Let's provide you further details, and your broad comments are noted, and please don't assume that isn't what is not happening, if that makes sense.
Just quickly, just to say that last week the government have got a suitably published strategy on landlords. Obviously tougher regimes, whatever. If you look through the detail of it, it looks like that local authorities will be the leader with which government does the landlords in. Therefore, it is quite key metrics. I really welcome the mayor giving us a come back, because I think we might be asked within the next 6 months to underpin a government scheme. And we don't know who we've got.
And I mean, just really to add to that, that's going to be one of our big asks, because we are the local authority that has had, against all other local authorities, the longest standing private landlord licensing scheme in the country, which, a number of local authorities come to learn from. And that is something to be commended in terms of what the council's done since it was introduced back in the day. And in addition, please be assured that there is a constant conversation about how we push up our targets and how we resource over what cycle of time, a demonstration that every single property that is being rented in the private rented sector has the diligence of the assessments required within each licensing scheme as it was approved during that particular period of time. And our most recent extension or renewal, should I say, there was an enhancement of the regime. So we can come back with a more detailed briefing, because I think that will be a really useful area for discussion with scrutiny.
Just to add to Councillor Hudson's request for information, could you draw a distinction between private landlords and the licenses of temporary accommodation? As I understand it, licensing now also covers temporary accommodation, doesn't it? That's a new area for us. I think it'd be helpful to have that data as well.
Yeah.
Councillor Shaw.
It's.
Okay, everything.
Looking at the leisure offer, getting our residents active is really great, encouraging them to become more active, physically active. Right. The Copenhagen model that we're trying to bring to the street sports model, it's called. Is it really relevant? The reason is our parks have a lot of outdoor equipment. Why can't that be used? And then the current offer, which is given by the better organization, isn't that sufficient for our residents? And also having a new project coming in, that's going to cost money with the current financial situation. Is that something we should be looking at? So that's my first question. Second one is, I have to commend the cultural passport for young people. That's a great initiative. But it says that we're going to be hiring a lot of staff because we want to clear the backlog. It's like 2 education psychologists, and then the list goes on, and a commissioner, so on. How much is this costing? What is the backlog we are talking about? Because it says the EHCPs are done in 20 weeks, which is a government required work time where you have to get an EHCP in place. How much is all this new staff costing us? And is that something we should be doing? If not, the current staff who's in the section of SEND department, what are they doing to clear the backlogs? Coming back to the Beckton Park master plan.
That's your last question. It's legally.
Okay. It says that the Beckton Parks master plan inclusivity charter says that we're going to have the leading SEND park in London. Where are we with it? How much is it going to cost? It says it's external funding, so that's fine. Have we secured the funding and has the work started?
Have to come back with the details.
Fine, take those in turn if that's okay. So particularly on the sort of Copenhagen Street Mecca initiative, which we've highlighted as an amber risk on the corporate delivery plan, it sits with a number of corporate delivery plan commitments that are, dependent on substantial capital funding to unlock them. And I think it is worth referring to the fact we are undertaking a corporate plan refresh in line with the LGA action plan recommendations, but also in line with our, increasingly challenging budget position. Now, without determining which of those commitments might be reviewed in or out of scope, the questions you're asking about ensuring that the competing trade-offs of investing in one initiative while also addressing performance issues in another part of council, those will absolutely be part of the conversations that I know Cabinet will be having. So those reflections are very helpful as part of input into that process. On EHCPs and the performance issues in that service, it's a long-standing set of performance challenges that the SEND service is tackling. There's a written statement of action working to Ofsted inspection standards to address that. The existing in-house capability and assessment team that were delivering EHCPs were overloaded with a substantial number of assessments built up over a long time of under-assessment in the service. And there has been investment in temporary capacity to increase the assessment throughput. The service is trying to now manage that while also managing an improvement required in quality of assessment. So not just focusing on the pace and timeliness of getting the first assessments done, but also ensuring that the assessments themselves are done in a way that ensures better long-term outcomes for residents. And that's a key challenge. On the final Beckton Parks master plan, we'll probably need to provide a separate briefing on the specific funding situation for that project, if that's okay.
Thank you. Right, the guillotine would forward with me, and just need to focus on some housing issues. Every time a cabinet member or an executive member comes before us in terms of repair services, they told us they are on a trajectory to improving. It's a perpetual improvement journey that doesn't seem to be coming to an end. So when I look at the report, the data here, the first time repair, I'm getting it right, is decreasing. Why is that? When we are told that you're improving you understand the situation better and work has been done. So what confidence are you going to give to the residents of Newham or the people in council accommodation that you're going to finally get this right and they get the repair done on time and correctly?
So I'm happy to provide a corporate response, but I'm sure the service director and manager would have even more information than I would. But I do know in terms of the current performance improvement plans for the service that are being delivered, they're very much focused on implementing the digital repair solution to start to reduce the amount of time that service users need to spend calling us, which results in delay, and also develop a whole range of other initiatives around stock management and better targeting. I would acknowledge that the pace of the improvement probably has not been as expected or presented in previous plans from the service. And I'm sure the service itself would have a lot of information around the current challenges and context that the service has faced around responding to recent inspections by the regulator, dealing with significant high-risk service failures and challenges in key areas, and also trying to manage the significant competing demands of temporary accommodation and homelessness. But I probably wouldn't be able to give you a satisfactory answer without referring to the director directly, if that's okay, Chair.
Thanks for your response, but from where I'm sitting, as someone who's been asking these questions, every time we get a response to this, it's improvement. It's improvement, and you're going to see the improvement, and we've never seen that improvement. And it's time that we get that improvement. Next, Mayor, and this is to yourself. When are we going to change your target? You have a target of housing 70% of residents in the borough. Currently, we're housing 62%. I did ask the cabinet member, Councillor Mohammed, about changing that target from 70. One, if you change it, the pressure won't be there to out people in which is more expensive, which is putting a lot of pressure on your housing budget. And I think, don't you think the time has come for you to review that target, given our financial situation?
So you'll know that already we are beyond 25-mile radius, 19 minutes travel outside of Newham, and there will be a alignment of the corporate plan outcomes-based performance targets once we've gone through the reprofiling of the budget in light of the financial challenges. But I guess the substantive point that I wanted to make is, notwithstanding what is set out against PI 6024, we have introduced flexibility and changes to the policy with regards to placements. So it's actually practically happening that there's a propensity towards placing people outside because of the costs and supply issues in Newham, as per what was presented, the budget to full council in February.
Thanks for that, but would you consider changing 70% target?
So as I said, it will be reviewed and it will be part of a revision when and as we go through the reprofiling of the budget this year. And yes, sorry, look, just to avoid you and I having like a circular conversation, and just for transparency and just to clarify, really, I appreciate that you will want to draw out a yes, no. I don't give yes, no answers because these are really complex issues. I think it's a trite response to a really serious issue. And I know that we live in an era of sound bites, and I know that everyone wants to have their kind of moment of going da-da. But I'm just saying, by way of reiterating, we will look at revisions to targets in the outcomes-based performance framework once we have reprofiled the budget. And practically, you will be aware that in terms of our out-of-borough placements, those are increasing because we've changed the policy.
And the reason I asked for a specific answer is cabinet members start more than once, right? Where's Sophie and Conrad sitting in between there? I asked the question more than once about the target. And one of the times I asked me to have a conversation with you. So, but if it's work in progress, it's work in progress. But the thing is, it's been asked more than once. And the last question, and I know the.
Okay, and if I may,
No.
if it's been asked more than once and you've not had a satisfactory response, we have monthly meetings and you've got every opportunity to raise any issues with me in those monthly meetings. And I didn't say it was a work in progress. I was very specific about my words, which are as follows, to reiterate. These will be reviewed and revised as per our reprofiling of the budget for this year.
Let's refer
Okay,
back to what you said.
thank you.
Noted. I know work is being done and reducing the number of people in temporary accommodations. And I talked to one of my colleagues earlier this week to ask, why is Newham subjected to such high level of temporary accommodation? So I'm not asking with the work that is being done, because officers told us last week the work that they are doing. So can you tell this committee why we are in the position, and also why, if you like, in terms of presentation, temporary accommodation needs?
How much time have we got?
No, I just want it in 1 or 2.
No, because it's not, again,
Can you give me an answer in 1 or 2 minutes?
okay, I'll try. Because these matters are really serious. I mean, you may want to joke about it, Chair, but I just don't think these are joking matters. There's a whole range of reasons why we have got a pronounced profile when it comes to homelessness and households presenting to the council. Let me reel them off, but I'll pause at the end of 2 minutes and then I can write you an essay and we can have another conversation. No, seriously.
That would be appreciated.
So with the 1 minute I've got left, we've got 68% of our resident population living in the private rented sector. It is subject to the inefficacies of a broken housing system. We've got insecure family incomes profiles. £19,400 per year is the average household income relative to 29,400, which is the London average. The private rented sector is going to be vulnerable to high inflation, flawed economic policy, the global economy. We have the majority of our private rented sector houses owned by landlords that have bought properties to rent and they want to extract as much value as they can. That in part has driven the downgrading of supply. We've had wage stagnation, growth stagnation in a national economy where our productivity as a nation is woefully inadequate in a global economy. We've got high levels of debt.
I would stop you there and get it in writing.
Thank you very much.
Answer in writing. Can we make a note that the mayor would be provided in writing? I'll bring this item to a close. I therefore move that Q1 Building Affair Newham Performance Report be noted. Okay. Thank you. We now move on to our next item, which is the budget performance. This item is to receive and consider report on budget performance. Before I ask Dopey to introduce this item, I just need to make some comments from the way I see, because this is one of the most challenging parts of the temporary accommodation, and temporary accommodation feed into this is the most challenging situation for us, which makes it untenable for us as a council. And unless drastic measures are taken, and we would, unless drastic measures taken or the government bail us out, we would be reusing, from my reading of the papers, we'd be using up our reserves in the next 18, 24 months. I know from the conversation that we have had is that work is being undertaken in terms of transformational work and in terms of other measures like asset sales, for instance. Again, for me, reading the figures, this is no enough for a 175 million budget gap by 2026. So if we're going to be serious in terms of addressing this budget gap, Scrutiny would like to see and consider a schedule of efficiency savings, because that would go some way to calm the scrutiny nerves that we are in control of the finances. Also, what it would take, what need to happen, and I did indicate to them my thoughts on this, is that we need to revisit the corporate plan in line of, in terms of the transformation, in line with what our budget position is when we did the corporate plan in 2 years ago, the situation was different. The landscape was, financial landscape was different. We didn't have this trust, we didn't have the conservative government that bankrupt, you know, the country, because we told last week there's a 20 million budget gap, etc. That was our time, but it's better late than never for us to revisit the corporate plan and talk to the people, work with the people of the Union to say that we need to do that. If not, then you know what the outcome is. I doubt we need a bailout if we're going to avoid using up all our reserve. And I doubt whether this government is going to bail us out, because the chances are saying there's a 20 million budget gap in our finances. So therefore, I don't think she's going to be in any hurry to help us. So we have to help ourselves. And so that is the way I see it. And that is the way my committee sees the situation. So in responding, I would like you to respond to that, and also members are going to be asking questions also. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you for summarizing it from your perspective, clearly. And it's good that you have already highlighted the temporary accommodation is the biggest driver. It is having the worst impact. And frankly, I'm sure you looked at it. If that wasn't the case last year, our rest of our budget would have been about temporary accommodation is the key driver, which is having a big impact. And I think Mayor has given you some detailed explanation as to why Newham seem to be suffering worse. It is a national crisis. We seem to have the burst of the burden in London. 60% of the homelessness is in London. And we do face quite a lot of obviously the costs as a result of the shortage of supply of the private sector rental accommodation. Supply and demand situation dictates that the private sector. We are doing quite a lot. I mentioned already that we are looking at revising the allocation policy to go beyond a certain distance. So what financial impact is going to be, and there is some modeling that taken in that regard. But there is a need to address the imbalance. Clearly, the mayor has already indicated that we are working to reprofile the budget. Government is making their own statement on 30th of October, but we certainly don't want to wait till then. You may be right that there is a deficit in the national situation, but you may also remember that recently, following the article that was published in the BBC standards, they were saying on the communities they are housing area that they are aware of the crisis, and they will be coming up with action plan to address that. How much that going forward, time will tell. That's where we are, Chair. I think all I can say in introduction is to assure you we are not standing still. We're working hard. We've been reprofiling the budget. We're looking at the reverse budgeting. You've seen the transformation report this morning. There's a lot in there which needs to be taken part of any budget strategy we have. But I think the rest assured situation is anything that is not our it's something that is up in the government policy area, national crisis. We have robust financial management. We reduced financial controls, in fact, we now strengthened them. And we've done everything looking at value for money from all aspects, as you see, the way we're looking at value for money in terms of the outcome. So a lot is happening. We do need some outcome, and it's quite like you said, and that's what's will be happening. Eventually, we'll be profiling and coming back. And if the government comes back on 30th October and say, yes, we're using your word, bail out, I won't know who used that word, but if that is the case, if they're supporting us, then really that will be helpful from our perspective, but we can reinvest some of that in our services, our regular better services. You really think the NTFS proposal from the budget, 175 million gap, if we don't fill that over 3 years' time, 1/3 of our budget is spent on temporary accommodation. 2/3 is already going on about social care and children's services. This won't be much for the rest. So we do need to make sure we move forward. And hopefully there will be some government support coming forward, and we can all be optimistic. But at the same time, I think we ought to be lobbying the government. We are doing it. We'll continue to do so, but we help the council, our MPs and others to make sure that the government recognizes the pressure. And because they know how we're making, our 2/3 of funds come from the central. We only have opportunity with council tax, which only pays 6 million or so if we raise by 1%. So we are in a difficult situation. There are challenges, but there are also opportunities that we're looking at all those. And I think I'll stop there. So.
Yeah, thank you for your opening remarks. At least they align somewhat with what I think.
Yeah, if I may, I'd just like to add a few words. Council Section 151 Office. This is essentially what I said at Cabinet this morning. It probably won't be exactly word for word the same, but I think it's important enough to reiterate the position. So clearly the financial position is serious, to put it mildly. No one is disputing that. Equally clearly, Chair, I agree with you. First and foremost, our responsibility is to do as much as we can to try and address the challenges that we face. I think it is equally clear when one looks at the report, as I know you will have done, that we lack, any council would lack the financial firepower to deal with the scale of issues we face, particularly on housing. Put a couple of numbers on that. Our best estimate over the next 3 years, we will need to save some £175 million. That is not a great deal less than half of the current net budget of £395 million, which illustrates the scale of the challenge. Over 100 million, 175 savings requirement is driven by temporary accommodation alone. Perhaps another way of expressing that, one thinks about the 6,500 or so households in temporary accommodation. If we were to acquire housing for all of them, that would cost, let us say, in the region of £3 billion. We don't have that, nor is the stock available even if we did. So, the figures kind of speak for themselves. Without some form of assistance, it will clearly be impossible to set budget balanced in the conventional sense. But I reiterate my point. Our first and foremost duty is to do as much of that as we can ourselves. That includes the transformation plan that Cabinet approved this morning, targeting savings of £13 million from just the first 2 of 8 phases on that. It will also include other efficiencies, but equally clearly, there is no way that we are going to be able to get through this without having to confront significant decisions about services, which services we should provide, and for those that we can afford to continue to provide, at what level we continue to provide them. We will, on top of that, need some assistance for government to deal with the extraordinary housing pressures we face. In my view, that should start with direct funding to match the costs that we are facing. Clearly, given the way government has approached this with other councils previously, and we anticipate that a large number of councils will also be approaching the government for support. 5% last year, probably twice, 3-4 times that this year. And that may also include temporary flexibilities on, for example, the use of capital receipts. We will do all of those things, and I want to kind of re-emphasise the point that we must do as much of that as we can ourselves, but the scale of the accommodation alone is such that I do not think any council can expect to deal with that without some further resource from government.
Thank you, Conrad. Right. I see Lester and Lewis. Now, can I say it's one question per member given the time that we have? And if we have time, then we go around again. So choose your best question for now. Because Lester, then I'm going to Conrad.
I'm actually questioning some of the narrative on this. Obviously, one of the things that we noticed on scrutiny was there were very few reports that were coming through over the last 9 months in cabinet about the financial performance of the council. And so that was the reason why scrutiny wanted to have a monthly report to actually look at this current financial year. So I just think from the point of view of clarity, that's why scrutiny I really want to dive in, because the financial situation is quite dire. I know there's a narrative that it's all the fault of temporary accommodation, but I don't think that is quite the case. I think there have been issues over the past number of years about general financial control and so I use, for example, the delegated schools budget. So on the delegated schools budget, and these are from Newham accounts, overspend of £1 million in 2019, overspend of £9 million in 2020, overspend of £8 million in 2021, overspend of £2 million in 2022. And the reason why I looked at that was there was a large debit balance in the delegated school budget, so obviously that was due to overspend. In mitigation, underspend of £2 million in 2023, and I think that you're estimating underspend of £5 million in 2024. I just use it as an example. We know throughout the whole of London and the rest of the country, there's issues with children's services. In terms of the report itself, and it's table 1, which basically says no real overspends. What has been happening, and this was covered by budget scrutiny in 2023, was that where there was budgetary pressures, things were charged directly to reserves. So in the case of the financial year 2023, £1.9 million in children's services. The way I picked it up was in your management accounts, you actually said in the paragraphs for those reports, we are charging this directly to reserves. And you may recall that I actually specifically requested a detailed report about the utilisation of reserves. So in the fiscal year up to 23, £1.9 billion for children's services, 0.4 in housing. My favourite one was £1.7 million for active Newham. We understand why. I could go on. It comes up to around about 12 to 13 million.
But you don't like it should, but we need to get to the question.
Okay, that we directly charge reserve. I suppose my question is, I understand that we have a problem with temporary accommodation. That's not going to be clawed back. I understand that you are going to be coming up with a report in September about your action plan to claw this back. It's some type of assurance that how much are you going to claw back? If we go back to the previous financial year and your half-year review, I recall Councillor Ali saying there was an overspend of 40 million, and he assured us by the end of the year, there will be no overspend, there will be a real action plan, you claw it back, and it went up to 22 million. So,
Chair, for Councillor Ali consent, I move we move standing orders.
I second, Chair.
Is that agreed by the committee?
Yeah.
Reluctantly agreed, Chair.
Okay. Standing orders is only moved until 9:30.
I'm happy to go before then, Chair.
Yeah.
6.
So before then.
That's one.
We don't explain.
Yeah.
Okay, then by then we should finish then. Okay. Okay, I'm hoping that we finish by then. Okay, yes.
Yeah, would you like me to respond to councillor? Yeah. So, I don't agree that Cabinet didn't receive regular financial reports last financial year, or indeed any year. quarterly in-year financial monitoring reports, as well as, for example, the previous year accounts at the right time from debt, as well as separate budget reports. So, you know, I don't agree that Cabinet didn't get sufficient financial information during the year. And of course, there are briefings to
You stop
Cabinet.
your head and staring at me. You've just done it. You just
Sorry, have I missed something?
Yeah.
Can I talk it across the,
listening.
Yes.
And I've just had someone shake their head and roll their eyes again.
Someone put it.
okay, so, okay.
But it happens.
Okay, so can I bring some order? Obviously, I've missed that, but then the mayor picked up. Can I ask that everyone be cordial and respectful to each other? Can I ask also that if there's any issue comes to my attention, rather than speaking across the room to each other? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I don't agree with the assertion that Cabinet didn't receive sufficient financial information in any year, certainly in the 5 years that I've been here. It is a fact that significantly more than half of our financial target of 175 million is down to temporary accommodation. I have not sought to suggest that there are not issues in other budgets. Indeed, they are set out in the report, but I think it is appropriate to focus on the largest item, particularly, Chair, as you asked us to be brief. But, you know, I entirely agree that, of course, there are many other financial challenges that we face, for example, on the dedicated schools grant. On the point about charging expenditure directly to reserves, it is normal accounting practice to use earmarked reserves for the purposes for which they're set out. I mean, it seems that the analysis there, you know, is sort of relatively detailed, and Chair, I'd respectfully suggest if we get into the detail of that in this meeting, we'll be here long past 9:30. I'm more than happy to pick up the point if you think that the transparency and clarity of the financial information that we report can be improved.
If I may, just to add, there was a justification proffered as to why Scrutiny was requesting monthly reports, because it was stated that Cabinet don't receive those on a monthly basis. Just by way of elaborating on a response that Conrad gave to that specific area of inquiry, in addition to the formal quarterly reports around the financial position that Cabinet formally receive as part of our Cabinet accountability, every single Cabinet member portfolio lead will, in their discussions with corporate directors, look at the financial position as it pertains to that particular service area and the requirements on part of a Cabinet member around their accountability oversight, and that happens outside of that formal quarterly cycle.
Thank you. Right, is it going to be very brief?
Very
I'm now asking everyone put in advance. I come to the members in a minute, yeah.
I'll be very brief here, and turn back to Councillor Hudson, in a terms of narrative, but frankly, the fact of the matter is that this is the template. As I said in my introduction, had we not had the TA problem, our budget would have been slightly underspent. And I also had in terms of DSG, but this year the spend has gone down by from 17.4 last year, 12 million, so we say 5 million plus, whilst all of the councils have actually increased their deficit. It still is a deficit because the government like just changed the new policy to help us out. That is the state. We reduced it down by 5 million.
Thank you, Councillor Ali, and then I move on to Lois.
Chair, just quickly, given that you've given Councillor Hudson latitude, and given that uncharacteristically I've not yet.
I haven't said the President and Councillor Godfrey.
It is questions and apologies wrong, because the stuff around this financial support is kind of muting it.
It must be a time.
I'm trying to discuss that as we go through. Firstly, so there's this list of 19 local authorities that we received. Are we not yet on that?
Because we haven't.
That's what I made the comment before, that's that.
Okay, sorry. Because we haven't needed to.
Okay, so the 16 million motivation assets from the budget last time around, that wouldn't be applied for through the year. That was my understanding there, but I may be wrong.
So to clarify the position on that, government commenced a consultation on allowing that as a general flexibility. They may still conclude that all local authorities should have that flexibility. But even if that had not been included in last year's budget, it wouldn't have been highly desirable, but there would still have been sufficient that we wouldn't have been needing to apply that scheme at that point in time. We will, as part of our negotiations with government, make representations about the use of those receipts.
So it might be through EFS, or we might just be given flexibility.
I mean, you know, it's certainly possible, and perhaps more than possible. The government will just grant that flexibility to the sector as a whole, in which case the situation may look different. But yeah, I can't state that for a fact. I think it is quite plausible, but I can't state it for a fact.
Totally fair enough. Okay, section 1.23 and 2.8, I think, I don't know. Yeah, 2.8 in your report, you described EFS or the use of those assets as a one-off action. But looking through the government guidance on this and looking at existing people who have local authorities who have received it, what you find is that a lot of the time it's the same councils coming back since 2019. Given what Councillor Hudson said and what I think you guys agreed with about the scale of our task, is it wise to be referring to this as a one-off action when it's probably not going to be one-off?
Yeah, I take the point. Do you want to come in on that?
If I may, so I mean, the point the report is trying to express there is that there is a big gap, isn't there, projected between expenditure and income. So borrowing money through the EFS, borrowing one sum of money through the EFS, or selling one lot of assets, maybe through the EFS, maybe through the other flexibilities that might come on offer. They're one-off actions, aren't they? So your gap.
Can you finish speaking?
Your gap between expenditure and income will recur each year, and that's the point that I'm trying to express in authoring that paragraph. But I quite take your point that other councils have, of course, as you've said, had to return for other bailouts. So
I guess it's a note then, which is that I read that. I don't think I'm completely dim, and I thought you were saying something that you weren't. So it'd be good to revise that. I just apologize.
That's your last one, Lewis.
The leeway.
You have got your latitude there. Last one.
All right. So I was looking at what Lambeth, who were one of these people who have kind of gone back to EFS for we're doing with their plans, and they obviously, as part of their extension of their EFS, SITFA have come in, they've formed a review of Lambeth's financial position, and Lambeth had to develop and share an action plan which addresses the SITFA recommendations. I guess it's one question, Chair, but it is in two parts. Given that we're going to go and request EFS from central government now, you must have already thought about and workshopped some of the kind of things you might have to put into an action plan or into some kind of documentation that goes to whatever it's called now. Sorry, it used to be
MNCLG.
Thank you. Can you tell us a bit about that? Also, I would expect that you guys have probably started to write some of this down. So I would expect there's some documentation, its draft form around this. Can you commit to sharing that kind of draft first thought with this committee? Because I think it would really, really help us in ongoing scrutiny.
So to the second part of that question, council in February already agreed that that should happen and that draft budget proposals should be shared in advance of publication as part of the draft budget.
But it's not the draft budget that I'm asking for, it's documentation around any potential sort of application for EFS, which I think will probably be in addition to the draft budget, although we do appreciate the work on the draft budget.
I mean, I know where you're coming from. My slight anxiety is, you know, I'm not sure it's going to be helpful to the council's interest to have, you know, sort of discussions with CLG, you know, played out in public. There may be a way of sharing information on a confidential basis if that's helpful, but I do think we need to kind of, you know, avoid getting into, you know, public debates around the detail of that as opposed to the principle of it. I can see potential pitfalls down that route. I mean, in terms of sharing information on a confidential basis, I can understand why that might be helpful.
So my chair, okay, I'm transparency, but I would accept that, and I'm sure that the chair of the committee would be happy to sit in a closed session. Thank you, Chair, for your leeway. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. Susan, then recommending then Terry.
I'm slightly surprised that the mayor hasn't stayed till the end of this session, given the public interest in the state of our finances. I'm not sure if there's a particular reason why she's had to go. I'm sure something very important's come up. I've been advised by our officers that the council has to publish a plan for consultation. And I know one of the budget working party criticisms last year was that very little consultation was done. And I'm just wondering when we're going to see that and what form it will take, given that we sold ourselves as a beacon of consultation.
So in terms of, I mean, we're already publicising the council's financial position. So, you know, it's all in the public domain. Once we have the proposals available, then of course formal consultation will start on those. I think there's a kind of preliminary step about understanding from residents, you know, if there have to be cuts, as there will have to be, which areas people express preferences on, which I would want to start that after the summer break.
And my second part of my question is about optics. Given the Evening Standard original story, which was unfortunate, and then the way that's filtered down through the media over the weekend, I'm just wondering whether there's a case for maybe looking at the kind of activities that we're focusing our communications on, given the seriousness of some of the information that's come out. And whether we're adapting our existing communication strategy to take on board.
Aside from the headline and perhaps first sentence, the Evening Standard report was essentially a series of quotes from our cabinet report. So, you know, journalists, I think, will tend to put sort of sensational headlines on things, and of course the public reacts to that. But I think it is worth also emphasising the point that that article and the BBC News article, on my reading of them, you know, except of course, you know, headlines have an impact, of course they do. But in each case, it seemed to me that they chose information quite sensibly, I would say, from our reports, set out the scale of the problem we're facing, much more than it did say, you know, Newham's got this wrong, and you know that's the cause of the financial position, if you know what I mean. So I think, you know, never great to see a headline like that. Of course, it's not, but I think we should remember that was, in some respects, quite a helpful way of explaining actually, you know, that this is bigger than any one council can deal with. So, you know, I think it's just useful to offer that as balance. I don't want to get into a sort of back and forth argument with the Evening Standard and other regional and national publications about, you know, trying to rebut what they said and then coming back. I think it's better to sort of leave the messages that landed for us out there, because they are quite, you know, as I say, they're not, you know, on the headline, the articles are fairly balanced.
Just to clarify, I'm not being critical any of these news stories, but what I'm saying is the seriousness of the position that is being communicated seems at odds with some of the events we've been covering in our council comms, like, you know, I was seeing on social media that, you know, residents were starting to pick up on the financial situation we were in. Meanwhile, on Twitter, you've got the mayor visiting some murals. You know, it does seem as though we need to get more serious in our comms.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think Conrad has explained the situation with regard to an extended and BBC, and media always tend to sensationalize the headlines, and that's how they.
Don't you think our comms should be getting more serious?
One way, please, through the
Sorry.
chair.
In terms of the wider, I also, my gut reaction, having read the article, was at least, yes, the headline was damaging, but actually it triggered a response from LGA, it triggered a response from the Minister of Local Government, Housing and Communities. And this was shown as a national kind of scale of challenge that local government is facing as a whole. And then the government minister also said, yes, we are aware of this and we'll do some action planning and we'll deal with it through the autumn statement. In terms of comms, I agree that there is a need for us to improve our comms and be proactive. And I think there is a lesson to be learned here that anything that comes up, there needs to be some proactive engagement or media activity or through website or through other councillors or other outlets we have, so that we are ahead of the game. Rather than hearing from the press, we hear from the council. So I think there is a lesson to be learned there.
I mean, literally, I'm just talking about the optics. I'm not criticising the article. I'm just saying that at a point where our residents picking up on this and getting a grip on this, it just feels like we should be taking a more sober approach to our comments.
Really?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Godfrey did ask many of the questions from paragraph 2.8, but I'm going to ask my question anyway. So you saying that you're going to seek government assistance on identifying to sell certain assets. Do we know, unless you have already shared with us the list of the assets?
Yes, those have been agreed by Cabinet. We don't need government permission to sell assets. There are assets we can do with them as we choose. It's flexibility on the accounting for them.
Okay, and then the EFS support scheme, like Councillor Godfrey said, there are 19 authorities. So how special are we that we will be prioritised and the government will give us the money? The reason is Kia in his final leaders debate, he did say he will not be helping bankrupt council. So how sure are you that we will get money? And if it don't happen, what is the backup plan? So that's one question. And the second one about the TAs. Have you looked into our neighbouring boroughs who's faring their TA accounts better than us, where they also have similar problems like us? The demographics are quite similar. They have same social issues, and their housing needs are quite similar. So if they're doing better than us, have you looked into what are they doing that we are not doing? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, let me try and take that. Andrew, please do add, particularly on the second point about TA if I miss things out. So it's not my scheme, it's government scheme. So, I can't give them assurance that they'll provide support. What I can say is that, last year, 5%, 1 in 20 councils needed it. Everyone I talk to in the sector expects that figure to be significantly higher this year. 10%, 20%, I've even heard more quoted. And if you go 2 or 3 years out, most councils, figure that on the current regime, they will be running out of money. So government, of course, may choose not to bail out the sector. And if that happens, well, you've seen the numbers, it's nearly half our budget, so we'll cut half our budget and not provide services. I don't think that would be a good outcome. What else can we do?
Yeah, okay, so Sophie, what does that mean for the residents then, given Conrad's response to Councillor Shaw?
Well, that is a hypothetical situation the Conrad has explained. Clearly,
If the hypothetical becomes a reality,
we will make a good case if we do need the exceptional financial support. And clearly, it is a matter of the government, and that's the reason I said we are looking at the reprofiling of the current year budget. And also, the work will continue to look at the MTMS implication if we are having to find £175 million by end of 27-28. And that means 100 million, as Conor said, is TA. The rest is 2/3, which goes to social care, etc. There's very little left for us to do. So we will have to look at seriously at services, quality of services, or the level of service we provide. I mean, we do have statutory services, but the government doesn't define exactly what standards of quality services they should be. So we look at, are we having a mini or a Rolls Royce kind of analogy? I can use that. And also some discretionary services. So we have to look at everything up in the air and re-pick based on priorities, and based on priorities, the residents will support in that regard. And that is the thing that Conrad mentioned earlier, will be going out, test residents' appetite to see what are the kind of services that they will be there, etc. So it's something that we will have to continue to look at, but we can't lose sight of it actually.
Chair, I apologise, I failed to answer the second part of Councillor Shah's question about temporary accommodation, didn't I? So I think it's really important to emphasise that Newham, saying this objectively, we are dealing with a problem, that is, a function of the London housing market, the particular demographics of Newham, and many other factors besides. In terms of what we have done, I would say objectively that we have a very good response. Our house building programme is one of the best 2 or 3 in London, and boosting supply is clearly an important way of tackling this problem. Similarly, our acquisitions programme, as I said earlier, there's no way that could be big enough to deal with all of the problem, but it makes financial sense, although there are legitimate questions to be asked about levels of debt, but it makes financial sense. And for those families who we are able to help that way, it makes an enormous difference to their lives. We have, and I can't talk about this so well, but housing colleagues would, very effective prevention strategies and robust means of ensuring that we only place people in accommodation when other opportunities have all been exhausted. And we also undertake a lot of work then to ensure the system is not misused in any way. There's always more that one could do, don't dispute that, but I think we have a good objective case to say that we have been doing as much as and more than other London boroughs, and that I do take your point earlier, Chair. Of course, or sorry, may have been Councillor Hubbard's, apologies. We're not trying to suggest that this is just all beyond us. There's nothing we can do, it's external factors. But I think it is fair to say that temporary accommodation, we have a good response to it, but nonetheless, the problem is bigger than we are able to solve on our own. That's fair.
Quickly. So there was a second question with regard to looking at the boroughs and learning from them, and that's something I can assure you that we are looking at all of the near neighbours, as well as Brent seem to have similar numbers to us. So we also looking at them, the demographic, it's totally different. But Brent seem to have the closest numbers. We are looking at them. Thank you. So thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
So as a follow on, I do know housing colleagues are working in pan-London groups and regional groups and working closely with other authorities. I mean, the crisis is really acute in Newham, so in some respects we are unfortunately a little bit ahead of some of those other London boroughs. And yes, they've been asking the questions of what can to learn from our actions actually. So things like the acquisitions programme to help assist with their response.
Thank you.
Councillor Paul, sorry, Charlotte.
Just on something Councillor Martha said about the optics on this. So from what we heard this evening, it appears that this is happened and we're being reactive as a result of, and I'm not going into the merits of whether the articles are right or wrong, but we've just been responsive to those articles. Question for Councillor Allen, are we still a campaigning council?
Well, we always have been a campaigning council.
Campaigning
Campaigning is, I mean, you may remember the good old days when we used to have a new lead campaign. It's all starting up.
Yeah, but but I think this is a really serious point and it's a pity the mayor's gone, right? Why haven't we been campaigning about this, regardless of whichever government was in place before? Why, we knew we were coming to a cliff edge, we knew things were getting worse. Why have we let ourselves down? Why have we not galvanised residents beforehand?
To be fair, in terms of campaigning, we have been working previously with the local government association, London Council. Mayor has been instrumental in terms of the discussion at the London Leaders Forum and the LJ. I have been meeting regularly in London Finance League. And we collectively, we have even written to previous
That's
governments.
business as usual. So going back to Councillor Godfrey's point about the visibility of this campaign, it's not a campaign if nobody knows about it.
But on the resident side, yes, you're right. On the government side, we have been liaising with the relevant authority to make sure that they are aware of the situation we're in.
If they get back to cabinet and actually look at whether there could be the viability of a more visible public campaign for Newham.
Well, in light of the situation we are in and the reprofiling of the budget we're looking at, that will necessitate that we actually move in a meaningful way, which actually demonstrate that there is serious problem missing. Externally, driven. However, the effect of residents, so we need our residents to support the council to make sure.
So that's a yes, sir.
Quality of service.
That's a yes, sir.
It was a long answer, was that?
It was a very long answer,
Yeah,
but
but
the
I
answer is
think
yes, you will engage with residents.
Engage with residents is.
As a campaigning council.
But whether you call it campaigning is a very subjective word, isn't it? So whether-
There's a two-way conversation now, so.
Sorry, apologies, Chair.
I would like Councillor.
Yes. No, I mean, it is actually engagement, consultation and campaigning, whatever you call it, but actually we need to talk to our residents. We need to take them with us. We need to get them on board. Let them realize what the situation is and let's see how they can help. So you could say that is indirectly campaigning. Actually, it's some form of engagement by. Thank you.
Yeah, just before, I remember, and Councillor Charles right, I think Councillor Masters have mentioned it. Last year, the residents weren't consulted in a timely manner. It was promised that this year they will be consulted in a timely manner. And one of the things that I always ask, when you consult them, do they, how much do they influence what you do thereafter? So this is a question for another time.
Lewis wants to come in just before me.
Lewis, I just go over this. You take.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I just checked my WhatsApp group of my street chair. And the resident said to me, are we going bust as a council? And I say, Chair, I feel as a councillor quite professionally embarrassed by that. And I'm going to preface that with my comments. We're talking about this bailout from the government. I think it's a normal financial instrument. No, it's not. There are 339 councils in England and Wales. Only 6% appear on the naughty step of getting financial support. And we're sitting here talking about putting us in that list as if it's a normal thing. And I want to put on record, I'm uncomfortable with that. Very, very uncomfortable, right? And it's like we're just moving along as if it's normal, and it is not. And I want it recorded in the minute, Chair, but it is not a normal state of affairs. Because of our financial issues, we are, the resident will say it, we're going bust, okay? And also, Councillor Ali, you said this situation of TA is not of our making. You said it in the report. I want to challenge you on this. And also, I'm going to use as supporting evidence the peer review. When the peer review came in, they said there is an insufficient approach corporately to looking at a temporary accommodation. And the recommendation was, but the chief executive chairs a task force to ensure this organisation gets its house in order on TA. That implies to me, they told us we want to get in our house straight ourselves. And it is too much us to be blaming Liz Truss, the price of corn oil in the Ukraine, whatever. What I want from you, Councillor Ali, is some responsibility and accountability, because I will not accept this thing about external pressure. I want you as a financial lead to show some grit, energy and application. In this, since I've been on Scrutiny since 2022, Scrutiny has found a number of project overspends in capital, in revenue and increase in our borrowing. I will not accept our financial situation only if TA wasn't around, because Scrutiny has proved over the past 18 months, there are a number of projects in this organisation. If they were better managed, we'll have a little bit more money to put in the right place. This is the second year of us using our reserves. Again, that is, Conrad gave an answer, you can use reserve for the purposes, yeah, a caveat. But the second year of using our reserves, I will not accept it, okay? And also, there's no analysis of why. We are an outlier. And again, we've got this sort of status quo. Oh, we're an outlier. Newham's got a bit of a problem. It's okay. We'll go and get a bailout. No, I have not heard no analysis of why we are an outlier. I think it was Councillor Hudson or Councillor McCormack. It was Councillor McCormack to the mayor asking that very question. No response, and it's not been written down. Again, I feel very uncomfortable, right? This EFS, it's not going to be a one-off. And why don't you tell the residents what's going to be the impact? The gap in the report is 175. We're going to go, I don't want to use the word bust, but we're going to have some severe financial challenges in 18 to 24 months. So when are you going to level with the resident? I just, you know, and we sit here, I'm sad enough. I went back and I've actually reviewed for the past 18 months all the meetings where you have appeared, Councillor Ali. I've got transformation plans have come in. You've got to be bold. There's new challenges. But you know what the common factor is? There's been a failure at each occasion to manage the delivery of our budget. So in final conclusion, I don't accept this narrative of it's not about making. Yes, it is. You're the lead for finance. Own it. Show some responsibility and grit. Because I am very, very embarrassed that I'm facing my neighbours and other residents trying to, how can I put it, explain to them why we're about to go bust. And I will not have it that this thing about external pressures. I'm not going to list them now, but I can list the projects where I think there's a lot of money, a lot of savings, and actually a few temporary accommodation units you wanted to knock down.
I think you're using up your life.
I'm just, Chair, I want to put it on record. This financial bailout is not normal. It's exception. Only 6% of councils are going for this. And we're sitting there just doing the motions as if it's normal. No, it is not. And I think we need to see a better plan, much more honesty, earlier cuts, and the impact to the resident. Long way of saying it, Chair. I'm not happy. I don't buy it. And I think, where are the cuts? Tell the residents, where are the cuts to restore the position in our budget? Because we are sleepwalking to a place I don't want to go, nor do the residents.
Okay, yeah. Councillor
Councillor Harrison,
Councillor Ali.
Thank you, General. I fully appreciate sentiments expressed by Councillor Terry in this regard, and I'm sure he knows pretty well, and he was in my shoes previously that the financial management is pretty robust in this authority, and in fact it has been strengthened even after his departure. And whether we like it or not, the major influences are external. I think, I'm not saying that Section 151 officer have said that. The whole of local government is saying that. Whether 5% of us for EFS or 20% of us, it is something that we need to address the imbalance we had. And that imbalance is, again, I will stress, not created by us, not our own making. If the government has given us funding properly, we would not be in that situation. If you look at the last 15 years, local government core funding has reduced by 20%. What our budget is just under £400 million revenue terms. Look at the impact of that. Look at the impact of the quality of services, etc. So we are, in terms of your response, yes, in the current year, we are looking at reprofiling the budget. The figure of 175 million is the forecast figure, which is based on a number of assumptions, number of uncertainties. But at least for the purpose of transparency, this administration has made it public that this is what we are looking at, if we cannot do things to manage better. Or the new government is a hope. We don't know whether they will give us any further funding or not. And if they do, that will benefit us. So that figure is it's a forecast at this point in time. But it is important that we bear in mind that there are so many uncertainties and variables which will influence the outcome of that figure. That having said that, we will, once we establish the ongoing reprofiling of this year's budget, we'll continue work irrespective of what the government comes back with, in order to make sure we address that difference of under 75 million over the next 2 or 3 years, so that we do not fall into the position where, as Councillor Paul says, that we end up being bankrupt. And ring-fence reserves are ring-fence reserve for a purpose. And they're obviously, as Conrad said, for accounting purposes, they are there to be used. I agree, they are not, it's not a good practice. I agree entirely, and we should be trying to minimize use. But when you are in the situation we're in, then they are there for you to utilize. That's where I'll stop, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Ali, Scrutiny is on record of asking yourself over the last 2 years or so to reprofile your budget, to look at the corporate plan, to adjust it, because like yourself, and you would know even better the figures than we only get the figures that you gave us. And when we look at the figures that is being supplied to us, we are seeing that the reserves are being used in a way that is not sustainable. Realize that the spend and like TA and other spend is in a way that is not sustainable. And we've been saying you need to reprofile, you need to start bringing forward savings, etc., to address the situation. As of now, with 175, and I hear you said it's a projection, but I know it's not going to be that far off from it. We still do not have a schedule of efficiency savings. I know the conversation will start happening. We were briefing the transformation and the savings you're expected to receive. We know you're looking at asset sale, but if when you take those into account, is nowhere near addressing. And one thing that concerns me, Councillor Ali, we don't have a good track record on delivering efficiency savings. From the last couple of years I've looked at, we are adrift by 25 to 30% in terms of our efficiency savings average across the years. So when I'm told that we're going to be getting X number of pounds efficiency savings, in my mind I already calculate that, you know what, I take on that 20%, because we're not going to get that based on past performance, unless you've improved. But if you're looking at what's happening with repair services, if there's anything to go by, and what is happening with temporary accommodation, it doesn't fill me with confidence that we're going to deliver all of those efficiency savings. So it is worrying for us on the in the scrutiny benches in terms of our ability. But I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. We look forward to seeing what is going to come in September in terms of reprofiling the finances. And I hope that we have confidence that the situation will be addressed and that some of us can, not be exercised by what's going on.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I take note of that. But in terms of savings, I can assure you, if you look at the report, and I'm sure officers able to confirm that we do have a good track record. And last year we did achieve 82% of the saving. Am I right?
Is that around in the region of 80%, Councillor?
Certainly far more than 25%. 82% was my calculation in my notes here, and that's the last year's saving. And this year's, we've got transformation, as Conrad mentioned, £30 million, and we're looking over the revenues, and there have been additional financial control measures been put in place, which will also reduce the spend as well. But in the long run, as you said, it's not be enough, so we need to do more. And we need to look at services, we need to look at service quality and the service standards and the level of change, and that would be part of the process we'll be looking at. Thank you.
And another thing I just needed to comment because I want to, I know Councillor Hudson also, Councillor Hudson gave a reason why we're looking at it in a monthly basis. But adding to what Councillor Hudson says, it is incumbent upon us as a scrutiny to do our part in assisting this process. Because I like to say we all, it's one council, we are elected members and we all have a duty to play our part. And I want it to be seen in that spirit. But when we're looking at it on a monthly basis, is to be able to question all you to account in terms of delivering. For instance, you said September. By September, we're going to, look and see what's happening. So that is one of the reasons why, is to help us not to get into that situation where we need bailout or more bailout than we should, that is necessary.
I will, actually, you've taken my words, and I was going to say my concluding remarks that clearly we're all in it together, and your input is absolutely critical as a critical friend and also as an elected representative for the residents of Newham. So any thoughts, views, suggestions you may have, we'll be delighted to receive those, because we said and others said we're all in it together. We need to make sure we manage the council resources better for the benefit of our residents. Knowing the constraints we have, but we still have to deliver the service.
Yeah, but the burden, the burden rests with you to provide. And we've been asking for it a long time, as I said before. So I'm going to bring in Councillor Mercer and then Paul Emerson.
Thank you, Chair. My question was going to be asked to Madam Mayor, but I'm sure she have something better to do. She probably left earlier, not here to. Yeah, if Councillor Ali probably be able to answer my question.
My best case, that's why.
Yeah. Okay, and so I'm as a layperson, my question is, I'm not familiar with accounts, and I mean the people looking into the YouTube channel today. How much of the reserves are we going to use to plug in the budget gap this year? And the other question is linked up to that one. Have you decided what services and what, obviously I was questioned to Mr. Mayor directly, but have you decided what services and which part are we going to making cuts in there? It's just, I mean, not many people are aware. So for the people watching on YouTube, so they can.
I'll make a start, and that question is more opposite to that question.
Thank you.
There's 158 million reserves we have, and 110 million of which are the ring fence reserve, which can be used. It's difficult to say at this point, in my view, how much is going to be utilized for that purpose, but I'll ask Conrad or Andrew to answer.
So if we were unable to do anything about the in-year overspend, then mathematically that figure would come off the reserves. Obviously, we'd do a lot to try and reduce that. The chair earlier correctly cited a figure we've quoted that if the council did nothing, and I emphasise not going to do nothing, but just mathematically, if we did nothing and let all the current trends carry forward, in around 18 months, perhaps a tad more, then the council would run out of reserves. So, that's the answer to the question. Clearly, members will be advised by officers and bring forward a number of proposals to try and reduce that. And as has been said earlier, the council committed in February to sharing those with the Overview and Scrutiny Committee as part of the development of those rather than waiting for that.
Yes,
yeah. Lastly, a concern, Zulfikar remarks, yes, we are in together, but we are in because of mismanagement of this 6 years of this administration budget. And what has been, pretty projects been going on in the London Borough of Newham, which was not needed. And there was so many, like Councillor Paul has mentioned, there was a lot of projects we could have saved the money. So if we had a proper management of the budget, we wouldn't be in the position. Yes, we are in together, but we are in because of this administration.
I
Thank you.
totally disagree and I refute that comment, Chair, that is mismanagement over the last 6 years. The way this council has managed finances over the last 6 years is exceptionally well. If you compare ourselves with other councils, our track record is excellent. And as I said earlier in my comments, the last year's budget, had we not had the issue with temporary accommodation, our budget would have slightly underspent. So I don't think it's fair to draw that inference or conclusion. With respect to the way we're going to move forward, it is clearly something that we are working, as we said earlier, and we'll be coming back to the scrutiny in due course once we got a reprofiled budget. And then we will move forward in terms of making sure that we bridge the gap. Thank you, Chair.
Right, okay, thank you. All right, I've just been advised that we approach 9:30. And I know that I see also.
Be quick.
Yes, sir. So we have to be quick.
One very quick question. It's about the communication strategy. I was forwarded an extract from Newsroom South East, where the opening line was Newham's facing bankruptcy. There has to be some, from the executive, there has to be some form of communication strategy. If you don't say anything and there is a void, then other people just provide the information.
And consider Paul, and then you'll answer both of them and we test it.
Just a quick comment. You said you don't agree with issues of mismanagement. I named affordable homes for Newham, Popular, Victoria Street, Carpenters, and there are more. And the bridge, the Long Dock Bridge, right? So, and just for that one, we want to spend 39.5 million in capital and spend over 50 years, 49.5 million pounds, right? So we're not going to have you, Councillor Ali, tell us tonight that everything is all tickety-boo.
I think we'll finally get it. So
right. And just one thing, Chair, I'm going to say something which you might admonish me a little bit. The budget scrutiny process is held behind closed doors, right? Chair, I'm going to propose, but this year I feel deeply uncomfortable sitting behind a closed room where the residents of Newham can't see what we are doing and holding the administration to account. So I'm going to propose for you, Chair, to take leave it on the table. I want to make a proposal, but all budget working party meetings are in public. And the reason why I say that, Chair, it's about time the residents of Newham see what we see with their own eyes, because we are sleepwalking, Chair, to a position I will be very uncomfortable to say to a resident, we do it behind closed doors to allow the administration to come up.
I hear what you're saying. I take that under advisement, but for instance, this is budget scrutiny and it is in public. And
you know what I'm talking about, Chair.
And we have the
Chair, you know what I'm talking about.
Anyway, I won't comment any further that.
Chair, to be clear, the budget, Chair, the budget working party process, which scrutinises the administration budget for a number of years, is held behind closed doors. In view of our financial situation, I propose, Chair, and I'll leave it on table for you, but that arrangement is reversed and all meetings on the budget are in public. It's about time the residents see with their own eyes what we are doing.
Back on that advisement. Thank you. We have
I propose it, Chair.
Is making a proposal and take it under advisement.
I think it's past 9:30.
Chair, I made a proposal.
Okay.
Is that noted, Chair?
Yes, it's noted.
And I second that.
Okay. Right. Can we answer those questions in 1 minute and then we conclude? Or we can provide answers in writing.
In terms of communication, I know Councillor Hudson, and that's something that we will be trying to do something about to make sure that we are proactive. And with respect to the other projects that Councillor Paul mentioned about affordable home, Popular, Victoria Bridge, etc. Those scrutiny had an opportunity to call those in, and I'm sure they were especially scrutiny when the thing was done. And if there are anything else that comes in future, by all means, please do call them in. And with respect to whether the budget working party meeting should be held in public, that's a matter for you to decide, Chair.
Thank you. Karen, that's it. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending this overview with me. The meeting is now brought to a close, because I'm 21:33. Thank you.